Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about video conferencing platforms and privacy or lack thereof. Now, as you know, we've all been focused on Zoom over the last month or so as they have been trying to remediate a lot of security issues that they've had, as well as their privacy policy. But we can't forget the issues that we've got with Microsoft Teams, Webex, Google Meet, and more in terms of their privacy policy and data collection. Now, here's what's going on. Consumer Reports just released a new report that answers the question, are there differences in how major video conferencing platforms handle privacy? Now, Consumer Reports had previously looked at Zoom, which we all know, obviously, as I mentioned, is working to fix their issues and repair their reputation. So Consumer Reports looked at the privacy policies for Webex from Cisco, Skype and Teams from Microsoft, and Meet, Duo, and Hangouts from Google. Now, Google has a single privacy policy for those three video conferencing services that they offer. Microsoft has one Microsoft policy, which is the same Microsoft policy for both Teams and Skype, as well as other products, and obviously Cisco has a privacy policy for Webex. Now, according to Consumer Reports' Bill Fitzgerald, who did a lot of this research, and I quote, "While there are differences among the privacy policies from different platforms, on balance, the differences aren't enormous. And from a privacy point of view, none of these options are great." Now, according to their privacy policies, all three of these companies can collect data while you're in a video conference, combine it with information from data brokers and other sources to build consumer profiles, and potentially tap into videos for purposes like training facial recognition systems. And here we are. All three companies also told Consumer Reports that they only record video or generate transcripts when a participant hits record, and that the contents are not directly used for advertising. Some companies actually made improvements while Consumer Reports was also evaluating their platforms. So, for example, Google gave hosts in Google Meet the option to require a password to enter a meeting. Previously, that was not an option, and so the Zoom bombing effect that happens on Zoom could have happened in Google Meet, and that's probably why they responded to that. Now, Consumer Reports had 4 tips for maintaining better privacy when you're in a video call, and I think these are actually worth repeating. The first one is pick a platform. And basically what they are saying here, and I think this is great, is that if you have one platform and you're sticking to it, you are minimizing your digital footprint by using a whole bunch of different platforms. Now, that may not necessarily be possible if you're not hosting the meetings, but the more that you are basically lowering that footprint, the less of these other organizations are collecting on you. Their next point is, and I think this is a great one, use outside privacy tools. And so first off, you can create like a burner email, something that you don't use for anything else, like important functions for like banking, healthcare, social media, all of that. So they don't have access to it. I would also take this one step further and say, if you're going to be using a free email service, I probably wouldn't go to a Google because they data mine Gmail, or Yahoo, who has had a zillion data breaches. I'd probably be looking at a more secure platform like Proton Mail to do that, because that is going to obviously not be data mined, and Proton Mail out of Switzerland is known good for privacy and security. The next point, though, that they make, and I think this is an absolute important one, this is something I even tell school kids when I'm talking to school kids about this: assume you're being recorded. That anything you do can and will be recorded, and that I think is a really good policy. And it's not just the platforms like Zoom and Teams and all that might be recording you in some way, shape, or form. There's no reason why somebody else in the meeting couldn't be doing screen grabs or recording through some kind of screencasting technology and all of this. And so one of the tips they have is to turn off your camera and mic whenever possible. And this is something that I actually do in meetings. For example, yesterday, I was just in a webinar with RSA for the COVID-19 Cyber Threat Coalition, which you should all check out. And when I was not talking, I automatically mute myself. And when I want to talk, I unmute myself. This helps in case I need to cough, but this also helps in terms of the privacy side, because if I'm going to be sitting here just listening to a meeting and not actually participating, which didn't happen yesterday, but if I am, then if I'm muted, then there's nothing that's going to be picked up. We also recently saw a very funny case from the U.S. Supreme Court where they were doing oral arguments over a video conferencing, and you could hear a toilet flush, which just proves that the Supreme Court justices are just like us. And the last thing that Consumer Reports says about video conferencing platforms is just make a regular call. And I think that's pretty true. Some meetings simply don't need video, and if that's the case, why not just call? And that may be a little more secure than having this thing fully recorded. That's not to say that, let's say, the Verizons and Sprints and cellular carriers of the world couldn't necessarily record your calls, but nevertheless. I would also go one step further and say that there are levels of what you should and should not be talking about here in these meetings. So if you are talking about very sensitive intellectual property or corporate secrets or finances or something like that, maybe that's not a good place to have a video call or video conference using a platform like this, especially if they're free, because they can record, they can data mine, even if, let's say, it's random for training purposes for artificial intelligence, you can create your own secure platforms and have basically a better solution to message back and forth for stuff like that. So keep that in mind as well. But if we are looking at and hating on Zoom a little bit here for their privacy policies, and Zoom's issues go a little bit deeper due to how they were establishing their encryption in China, as well as their ties to other Chinese corporations and that government, there's things to be worried about. But in terms of privacy, we can't give Microsoft Teams, Cisco Webex, or all of the Google products a free pass. They're going to data mine us too, and I think it's important that we recognize that. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.